Hi, how are you doing? My name is Jerry Dugan. I'm the owner of BTR Impact. I'm also the lead or senior leadership consultant, and I help leaders boost their workplace culture so that they see an increase in employee engagement and employee performance as well as accountability so that you see higher levels of customer and patient satisfaction, higher levels of safety, as well as higher profitability. All that done at the manager level with skills that really cost you nothing other than a little bit of time, a little bit of investment. Now, my leadership career goes back, I hate to say this, but over 20 years. So it goes back as far as 1999 when I joined the United States Army as a medic. I found myself in basic training in a place called Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And then I went to Fort Sam, Houston for my medic training. And in both of those cases, I was put in charge of my classes. So in basic training, 64 people reported to me. I had 4 squad leaders and an assistant platoon guide. And I had to learn in a crash course format how to be responsible for others while taking care of myself, getting the mission done, those kinds of things. And then I decided to lay low when I went to train to be a medic. My class sergeants found me in the first day and asked me to be they didn't ask me, they told me I was going to be the class sergeant. And my responsibility was to make sure that all 20 to 30 people in my class, I think it was closer to 30, graduated and became medics. And I accomplished that, but it involved keeping track of everybody, letting people go on breaks, those kinds of things. And this is where I earned the nickname the Warden. And um, not a good thing. Even in the army, you don't want to be known as the warden. It meant I yelled at people. I disrespected people who reported to me. I was such a micromanager that people wanted to fight me in the woods. That was the warden. People wanted to escape my leadership. And finally, towards the end of the training cycle, one of the cadre pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I noticed you have a lot of trouble with your team. They don't like you." I said, "Yeah, it's probably because I'm a small guy." Like I came up with excuses why my team didn't like working with me. And he said, "I'm going to give you some advice, and I want you to think about this because chances are, with the rank you came in at as a specialist in E4, you're going to be tasked with being a leader a lot in the rest of your enlistment. And if you're re-enlist, this is going to go a long way for you. But think about your people as people and treat them well. And on top of that, you've got 3 squad leaders chomping at the bit to lead, to take the load off your shoulders. You don't have to do it yourself. Besides, they're going to be spread out tomorrow and you cannot be everywhere all at once. You have to trust your squad leaders. They have to be able to do what you do. They have to know what you know, and they have to also be able to take over from you in case you were to be killed in combat." And it was such an eye opener because I knew that, but I didn't know that. What I'm saying is, even though I knew it, I didn't put it into practice. And so the challenge this guy had for me, this drill sergeant had for me, was trust them, let go, delegate the work of being a leader to them. You're still responsible for all 3 squads. So everybody has to come back in one piece and safe and sound. You got to report on that and you have to know where they were, but trust your squad leaders to do their job, to take care of their people, to get their missions done. And so I took that to heart. I met my 3 squad leaders. First thing I did was I apologized to them. I told them it looks like tomorrow I'm going to be pulled off to another group altogether, and that the 3 of them were in charge of the platoon. They would be in charge of their individual squads. It'd be up to them to keep everybody accountable and make sure everybody was safe and sound and all that good stuff. The whole day goes by and we get back together. They're excited. They're happy. They're kind of sharing the stories, but I also kind of heard the stories coming in from other channels throughout the day. And what amazed me was at the end of the day, I had to give the report on all my soldiers being present, their weapons, their masks, all that stuff. And we went in reverse order. So I was first platoon. So the first group went, or the last group went first. They had people missing. They had equipment missing. It was not a good picture. Next group went. They got in trouble. Eventually, it was my turn. And I was able to snap a salute and say, I remember now, 44 people assigned to me, 44 people present, 44 weapons accounted for, as well as 44 masks. I was the only one able to give full accountability of my entire team with the full confidence that my squad leaders did their part. That drill sergeant at the head smiled, shook his head like that's my group, snapped a salute back, said, "Huh," and we were done. What did that teach me? That taught me a number of things. That delegation built trust with my squad members. The rest of my cycle, which was only another week, was the easiest week as a class sergeant ever. Um, my 3 subordinate leaders were so excited to be able to be squad leaders. They had so much respect that they garnered with their teams. And then the rest of that team stopped challenging me to fights. All of a sudden, they felt respected. They felt cared for as people. And all that because I finally understood what it meant to delegate. And as my career progressed, so I became a sergeant in the Army. I led a team of 5 medics in Operation Iraqi Freedom. We were spread out by hundreds of miles, and I had to make sure they could carry out their mission safe and sound, but also accurately and perform as informal leaders because they would have to instruct people well above their pay grade, their rank, their place in the hierarchy to evacuate people if needed. So they had to have a lot of competency around that, a lot of confidence built up with the people they were supporting. So from there, I served in ministry as a core member of my men's ministry at my church, as part of a marriage conference team with my wife. We were the directors of that. So leading people without paychecks, that's a different ballgame altogether, but a lot of similarities. And then in the corporate healthcare space, I've been a manager and a director of teams that built up other teams. So I've been a leader. I've helped leaders as a leadership consultant. And what I want to do in this session is share with you how delegation, you could develop your staff through delegation using the carry, crawl, walk, run model. And so you could type in the comments and you can add questions. I should be able to see them at some point here, but I'm streaming live, so I don't know how I'm going to pull that off. But stay with me as I pull up these slides. Now, as I'm pulling up my slide deck, what I want to share with you is another story. So, again, we're talking about delegating for development. So, how do you develop your staff, your employees, using delegation, using the carry, crawl, walk, run model? And so, I've got another story here about delegation I want to share with you. And this has to do with an intern that came up to me. I was a brand new leader at an organization. So I had already had leadership experience, but now I was coming into a brand new organization. And part of my task was to create a coaching model. And I was given a stack of books, 5 books, maybe 6 books to read through. They'd already been bookmarked for me, but still I had to read the material. I was given a stack of articles to read, and my job was to decide on a coaching model that was grounded in best practices, so academically accepted practices. So it had to be a model that the industrial organizational psychology field would be familiar with, would support. There would be plenty of research to back it up that this is a sound model to go by. The second criteria was that the model had to be easy to learn and remember. The third thing was that it had to be easy to utilize in the moment, even if not perfectly. That a leader, a manager equipped with this coaching model would remember it, what it meant, and then initiate it easily, even if they didn't do it perfectly. Because coaching takes practice, it takes experience to really do it well. So that was the criteria: something grounded in best practices and academically accepted, you know, principles and pedagogy. Well, that's more of a learning thing. The second thing was easy to remember and then easy to use. And I left with homework. And I'm like, oh man, I'm still learning my job. I'm learning who's on my team. This is going to be a lot. So maybe I got homework. That was my thinking. I'm walking down the hallway and I see my intern, and my intern says, "Good morning, Jerry. How are you? Is there anything I can help you with?" And I looked at my intern, and I looked at my stack of books, and I looked back at my intern, and I asked my intern, "What are your thoughts on coaching models?" And she lit up and she said, "We're studying that in my master's program right now." And I thought, wow, this is perfect. I said, great. Do you have time? I know you've got so many hours with us during the week and you only have so many hours left in your internship before your semester's done. What's your time like? She said, "I've got time and I'm here for a few hours." And I'm like, great. Meet me in my office in a few minutes. Let's block about 30 minutes. And so we did. She met me in my office. I shared with her my assignment, And she asked, "Great, do you have any resources you'd like me to review?" And I'm like, "It's funny you should ask." And I still had the stack on my desk, and I passed that on to my intern. And so I basically delegated this to my intern with the guidance that in 3 weeks, what I need is actually, I need this person, this intern, to decide of all the available accepted coaching models, which one would be the best for this organization based on what she knows about us. So maybe we need a little analysis of who we are as an organization, the culture of our leaders, that kind of thing. Um, and could you get that to me in 3 weeks? I need what is your decision on what coaching model we should use, plus two alternates, but what's the one you would definitely want to use and back that up? She took that and she ran. And not only that, it became part of her homework assignment and in her course. And in 3 weeks, I had a multi-page write-up with recommendations on best practices and a recommendation on which model to go with. And I presented that to my leader. And it kind of went okay. I think part of the thing I got flack for was that I had the intern do this work as opposed to doing it myself. Got some more feedback. I took that back to, and now the guidance I got, by the way, was to take this from my intern and do it myself. And I said, I can't do that. I've given this project to this intern. It's up to this intern to see this through. And what I'd like to do is give the feedback you've given me and relay it to her in a way that is constructive and helpful. And in 2 weeks, we'll have something for you to present to you. And my leader agreed. I gave the feedback back to my intern, and in 2 weeks, turned that around. And I kid you not, the only guidance really was we need this to be our own. So yes, grounded in all these other theories and accepted models, but it has to be our own. And what we got was way better than if I worked on it myself. And in my opinion, still way better than a lot of the models that are out there because it infused different communication tools and models together into a very comprehensive coaching model. And I presented that to my leader, and we hashed it out for 2 more weeks. And we had a final product that we rolled out to 450 leaders in the organization. And that's why I want to talk about delegating for development because my goal was to develop this person, but also free up some time for me. And I wanted to use this person's best talents and capabilities. And the timing was just great because she was studying this in her coursework. So, my agenda for this session, the time we've got together, which is really just about 18 more minutes, is why delegate? And then from there, we're going to talk about some ground rules about delegating, and then the carry, crawl, walk, run model. And then as a bonus, I'm going to share with you a free resource as well as a 2-day workshop that's coming up in April of 2024 with a really sweet discount code if you act today. If not, we'll see what happens. But the prices do go up tomorrow. So that's what we're going to dive into. Why delegate? Now, for me, I shared with you life is easier. But I want you to think about this. What would you do with an extra 10 hours a week? So, you as a leader in a management role or in a director role or higher, what would you do with an extra 10 hours a week as a leader? You probably do a lot, right? But what's keeping you from doing that? There are probably some tasks and responsibilities that are on your plate that are preventing you from doing the things that you find more important, more impactful with those 10 hours. Now, some of you, I don't know if it's shame on you or not, but you were probably thinking, man, with an extra 10 hours a week, I'd go home early. I'd spend more time with my family. I'd probably have a 3-day weekend every weekend. Hey, it's your career, not mine. Uh, so, what would you do though? It could be personal development, professional growth. It could be something more strategic. It's your career, your business. You do with that time what you want. There's no judgment on what you do with it. It's just a question. What would you do with that time though? And then from there, what do you need to give up? What do you need to hand off to be able to pull that off to free up that time? And so delegating, why delegate? First and foremost, it frees up your time to get strategic. Now, strategic can be I spend more time with my family because in the long run, family is important. Our personal lives are important. It could be I want to free up more time to get a course done, to read a book a week about leadership or about business. It could be I need to work on a project that is going to have huge impact on this organization for years to come, but I need to work on it now. So that's one reason why to delegate. For me, I had to delegate in my army story because there wasn't enough of me to cover everything. It was stressing me out and it was taking a toll on my team to the point where they wanted to fight me. You may not have that trouble, but you're probably thinking you got to do it all yourself. And when you free up your time, you let other people do their job, you're able to take care of the things that matter most as that leader in that role. But here's some other benefits to delegating. You get to teach new skills to the people who report to you. So they could be leadership skills, whether formal or informal. It could be scheduling, time management. It could be processes. It could be software. It could be project management. You name it. There are new skills as well as new work experiences to be gained when somebody takes a delegated responsibility from you. And these are huge when it comes to growth of somebody's career. New skills, new experiences I could put on a resume or your employees. You can also start to develop your future leaders. And that's a big reason why delegation was so important in the military was that my life expectancy as a leader, and this is kind of morbid, was short compared to somebody who was not in a leadership role. So I had to make sure my team knew what to do in my absence. And since I had a team that was pretty much remote before remote work became a thing because of the pandemic, I had to make sure my team could do my job because they were going to have to do my job without me around. They're going to have to do their job as well. So they couldn't rely on Sergeant Dugan showing up from 100 miles away to influence a leader above them, who was also above me, to let them do the thing they needed to do. They had to be able to do that themselves. So I had to trust them to communicate with leaders above their pay grade in a way that was constructive and according to military protocol and bearing. So you develop future leaders with delegation as well. Now, why do people leave their jobs? I've presented before in many of these webcasts about the Gallup studies done on why people left their jobs. And these are kind of the 5 top reasons why people leave. That lack of clarity of expectations on what success looked like. No connection to the team members or no connection to the organization's mission, vision, core values, that kind of thing. But that gray box right there points out the 3 things that delegation can help address. No opportunity to learn new skills? Well, delegating with that intentionality can fix that. No opportunity to apply skills I already have. Again, delegating responsibilities can help fix that. And not feeling cared for. Well, when you take the time to talk with somebody about their goals and talk about the work that you have on your plate and the need of the organization, you're showing that you care about their success as a professional and you show that you trust them. And in that way, to me, trust is caring in many ways. And so when you show that you trust them enough to share with them, this is what I have, these are priorities I have. I understand you have this goal here. What do you feel about taking on this responsibility to develop these goals and get this kind of experience on your resume? Man, that goes above and beyond. I just need you to show up to work on time and get your job done. This is now saying, hey, I still need you to do those things. And I want to give you some work experience that's going to allow you to look even better on your resume, which makes things a bit more competitive. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why would I want to do that? They're just up and leave. If you don't do this, they're going to up and leave anyway, because they're going to look for somebody who will provide this type of growth for them. So you may as well be the leader who provides that growth for them and extends the life of that person's career or tenure in your organization or on your team just a little bit longer. And here's the other caveat. What if you don't develop your team through delegation and they stay? Now you're stuck with people you got to micromanage. And you can fix that again by delegating. So, according to the Gallup, top 5 reasons are here why people leave their jobs. And delegation can fix and address those things in that big gray box right there. Now, some ground rules when it comes to delegation. Here's some things that I live by. And the first one is think about what will this develop. So like when I handed that project off to the intern, it wasn't just to dump some busy work off to the intern. That was a very important project for the organization. It impacted over 450 leaders inside the organization. We led a multi-month campaign to unveil this and provide this to the organization on time. But I also thought about, hey, this person is currently studying coaching models in her course. This project's going to give some real world connection to that coursework and what we're doing here. And she's looking to become a consultant. So, hey, this is going to help in a very big way. So that is what you want to think about when it comes to what do I delegate? You're not just dumping stuff on people. Could this help them grow some skills or deepen some experience? Ultimately, when you delegate, you want to transfer ownership. So when I gave that project to that intern, that was her project. It, I was not going to take it back. And that leads me, I think, to the next one, no take backsies. People are going to make mistakes. They're also going to do things differently than you. That's one of the roadblocks people have when it comes to delegating. It won't be done fast enough. It won't be done my way. It won't be done the right way. That's all part of the learning curve. And sometimes their way is going to be better than your way. And so when you're transferring ownership, you got to give those guardrails. You got to give that clarity on what the rules are of engagement for that project. But also, once it's theirs, it is theirs until you both agree it's not a good fit anymore. But just because there's one mistake, you don't just take it back because what does that do to the trust or the feeling of whether or not you trust them? And I'll tell you, it undermines that. You take back a responsibility that you handed somebody and gave them guidance on, and the moment they made one small mistake or one big mistake, rather than trusting them to grow from that, learn from it, and get it right the next time, or give them a chance to fix it, you took it back. And that communicates, I don't trust you anymore. And trust is a huge, huge foundation when it comes to leading others. In fact, we just did a web forum, had a huge discussion on trust as an important element of leadership. It's one of the four stakes in the ground for the tent framework, for crying out loud. Did I just say for crying out loud? I did. And you also want to delegate in a way that you're setting people up for success. So you don't just dump it on them, leave for 3 weeks, come back and say, hey, it's all wrong. What's wrong with you? Truly give them the tools, the guidelines, the guidance, and the guardrails so that they are successful as they get better and better and better at the responsibility you assigned them and agreed to. So set them up for success, make them able, not just capable, but able to get the job done. And use a decision making model. And we're going to talk about that next. That's the carry, crawl, walk, run model. So, you may know this as something else, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But a decision making model really provides that clarity on what does success look like in the responsibility area? What am I, as the person taking over the responsibility, allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? When do I need to report back to you? All those things. A decision making model is huge. So let's talk about that. The carry, crawl, walk, run model. Now, if you're familiar with Ken Blanchard, he came up with a model of leadership called situational leadership, and delegation is the highest level on that model. There's 4 stages. And what I found over the years is that there is a delegation model that takes situational leadership and infuses it together. So, and I'm kind of in that camp of delegation can happen at any level of somebody's career, whether they're new to the job or somebody more advanced who's looking for that next level type of growth. So delegation happens. If you tell somebody your job is to work the cash register, you just delegate it because you're not going to stand over that person and watch every single transaction. They're going to be taking orders on their own. They're going to be making sure orders are filled, make sure that the right amount of cash is collected, that the right amount of change is given back, or if it's a credit card transaction, that those are done correctly so that everything balances out by the end of the shift. That's delegation. So don't tell me you don't delegate. If you do any kind of work where you as a leader tell somebody else that they got to go do a thing, you are delegating. And if not, you're doing it all yourself. You're going to burn out. Your team's going to hate you. They're going to go find work somewhere else. And you'll just gripe about how employees don't have accountability. Oh, man. Hopefully, I didn't hit you too low there. I didn't mean to, just kind of getting you fired up. So let's talk about these 4 levels. It ties in a bunch of different models I've come across, and I didn't want to get sued. So carry, crawl, walk, run. And the last 3 are kind of, they make sense. You go slow, move a little bit faster, now you're running. And carry, you're not moving at all. So that kind of imagery helps, I think, understand what level of decision making somebody has at each of these levels. So let's talk about the first one, carry. At the carry level, you're not really delegating anything at all. So they don't have to make any decisions. They don't have to come up with any solutions. They don't have to come up with ideas. You're just exposing them to a bigger horizon in the world. It's kind of like when that's a bad Bad analogy, but I'm using it anyway. When Mufasa from The Lion King shares with Simba that their kingdom expands as far as the eye can see, and probably even beyond. And it's kind of like that. Your employees probably just thinking about that little glen or meadow where they operate, and Carrie allows them to see a bigger picture. So you're really just exposing them to more people and more processes. You're expanding their horizon. You're expanding their world just by letting them see it from a different angle. And so, some examples of Carrie, when you're delegating something with Carrie, it's letting them shadow you in meetings. Like, hey, bring these files, come with me. Your role is to be a fly on the wall. You just hang back, you listen, you observe, you don't speak up. You're just there to observe and watch the interactions here. And then afterwards, we'll talk about it. What did you see? What did you not see? What would you have done? Just give them a chance to process that. But they have no responsibility other than to be there, observe, and get to know people. Shake hands, smile, because the future is they may be working with these folks. Maybe. So you're introducing them to stakeholders. And one thing I like to do is have them moderate meetings. So if I'm going to do a Zoom meeting with a bunch of people, I'm going to have this person moderate the Zoom meeting. So they'll send out the invitations, they'll send out the any pre-work that needs to go out there or any files that need to go out. They'll take attendance. They'll make sure people are muted on the calls. They make sure people are on. If you're recording a transcript, they make sure everybody gets a summary or the transcript itself. Whatever it is that needs to happen to moderate the call, have them assist you, have them be your moderator. That will give them something to do. It'll give them a role that makes sense in that setting, and they get exposed to all the people in the room. And that's a great thing to do. So if you're doing virtual meetings and you want to use the space to help somebody grow, that's something you can do with somebody you trust. Maybe they helped you set up the actual meeting, make them the meeting minutes person, whatever it is. But with the intentionality of exposing them to a bigger world. Let's talk about crawl. Now, with crawl, you're delegating ideas. You're getting that person to start practicing decision making and thinking through why they made that decision. So it could be something like coming up with the schedule for the staff for the next 2 weeks. Now, with that, you have them make the decision, not recommendations, make the decision. But before you make the decision, come to me. Let's talk through it. See if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. Let's talk through any rationale that you used to make those decisions. And then once we've made any adjustments that are needed, we'll go ahead and act on it. But we'll work on this side by side together. So it's like a practice run. You could do this through I think in accounting, they do like paper money exercises. So you could do something like that with project management. It could be we're working together side by side. Yeah, I'm the person in charge of the project. However, the person I'm delegating to, I want them to process all the information and share with me what they think. Now, when I delegated that project of creating a um, coaching model, this is the stage where we were. I wanted my intern to decide what is the coaching model we should use and what was the rationale that went into it. How do we want to roll this out? Actually, that was the next phase. How do we want to roll this out? Uh, so this is the phase where we were. So there was no pressure on the intern to communicate and get approval or anything like that. I just needed my intern to decide on a model, why we need to use it, and give me the tools so I could pitch it to the higher ups. And then when we launched it, I let her be the primary presenter on that, and uh, really let the audience, the leaders know this is the person behind the model. This is why it works. This is what went into it. And not only did I pour into my individual like that, my leader also managed up my employee that way. Now the walk phase. We're moving on up, right? Now, with the walk phase, you're delegating the task. They're responsible for recognizing a need to get the task done, acting on it, and then filling you in that something was done. So this could be like an emergency, a crisis. I had the training to act on it. I saw this, I did this, and I reported this to my leadership. In healthcare, standing delegated orders, SDOs, is a big example of walk type of level decision making. So They recognize an emergency because of certain criteria, certain signs and symptoms. They act on them based on protocols already written. They execute those protocols, and they immediately report to their manager, the administrator on duty, maybe the house supervisor, and the physician. So they're recognizing a need, make a decision, act on it, and then they immediately report. It doesn't have to be immediate. The report could be at the end of the day, end of the week, once a month. There's some kind of regular reporting just to make sure everything was done the way it should have been done. It followed protocol. You made some really good sound decisions. And then if not, let's talk through what happened here. What would you do differently? So again, you're using this as coaching opportunities, development opportunities. And then the run phase. The run phase, this is theirs. You've delegated your authority to them. You're still responsible as the leader, but you've also shared and empowered them. This is yours. So they can make a decision, they can act on it. They don't have to report to you right away. They're responsible for the success of the program. They have everything they need to get what supplies, processes, approvals. They are handling it. One of my jobs, I was in charge of new employee orientation. That was mine. I was in charge of it. So I collected the rosters every Friday, had those prepared, had materials prepared, made sure my speakers were ready to go. On Monday, I executed. That Tuesday, I sent all my reports out, like for attendance, that kind of thing. Did my follow up there and got ready for the next one. So that was mine. My leader did not follow up every single Tuesday to make sure everything was okay. Hey, did this person show up or that person? No, it was just simply I was in charge of it. And then once every so often, when we had our one on one meetings, I'd give my leader an update on what was going on. So that is an example of run. Ideally, yes, you can get people up to this level. You don't have to get everybody to the run level. A lot of people don't want to delegate because they feel this pressure to get everybody to the run level. That's great. This is when you have the most time freed up, and that's phenomenal. Sometimes it makes sense just develop somebody at the walk level and then move on to another project. Sometimes it's the crawl, sometimes it's just simply exposing them. Like they may never do anything with following you on meetings, but they will still grow. So you now have this framework to say, I want to hand this responsibility off to you. This is what I'd like you to do in terms of tasks. Here's where you can make some decisions. And here's what I'd like you to do. Make a decision, but come to me before we act on it. That's the crawl phase. And we'll do that for a while and then we'll reassess in a couple of months. How does that sound? Maybe it's the walk. Hey, this is what I'd like you to do when this happens. You see it, act on it, let me know. Maybe it's at the run. This is again, you've given all the support, you've kind of walked alongside them. You know they can handle this without a lot of supervision. I would say initially, don't hand things off at the run level. Go crawl or walk for a lot of things. Carry is more of just a broadening horizon. Like if you have an emerging leader kind of thing, and you want to expose them to the next level up, that's a good example of when you use the carry level. So putting this into practice, you identified some things that would take time off your plate, make life easier for you. You've identified through conversations with your team where they like to grow, how they'd like to grow, what skills they want to develop, and you've identified where those match up. What things do you have on your plate that will build up the skills of the staff, the skills they want to build up? So think about the skills and experiences your staff want to develop. What responsibilities could you delegate that would free up your time? So again, going back to that question, if you had 10 extra hours, what would you do with that time? And what level of decision making will you delegate to them? Is it the carry level, crawl, walk, run? And when do you want to have that conversation with them so that they can take this over? So that's putting it into practice. Start thinking about that. What do your people want to develop in? What do you have on your plate that would help develop them in that way? What level of decision making makes sense for where they are in their career? And then where would you like to go? And when are you going to have that conversation with them? Is it going to be tomorrow, next week, in a month, 2 months? Make that decision. Now, sometimes people ask me, what if they don't want to do this? And that happens. First thing is, don't get offended. Some people get hurt and then they delegate nothing to this person ever again. I gave them a shot. They turned it down. Don't be offended. Don't close that door. As a servant leader, you want to keep that door open. You want to keep growing your people and developing them. And so have a little bit longer of a conversation. Dig in deeper. What is it that is making you um, leery about taking this on? What are you worried about if you took this on? What do you have to gain? What do you have to lose by not taking this on? Um, is there something on their plate that if they took on this new responsibility, they don't have time to do these other things? And that's a good conversation to have because you now have an opportunity to see if somebody else on your team can take on that workload and that responsibility. And eventually, you'll wind up with either justification to add another staff person to handle all the stuff that's getting rolled down, or you might even identify some processes and tasks that really don't have to happen anymore. And you can eliminate some stuff that is not being productive to the greater good of the organization. So these conversations are good. Don't think of them as, oh man, I offered something, they turned it down. Um, and if this still isn't an opportunity for them, what would be something they feel ready for? Um, what reassurances can you give them that this would be a nice stretch assignment and we'll all benefit from it? So if they don't want it right off the bat, have a conversation, dig a little bit deeper, reassure them that you're doing this to help them grow as much as free up time for you, and you want to make this beneficial for them. Sometimes they just don't want to do it unless there's more pay. If that's going to become a permanent thing in their role, then that's definitely something to consider. So um, there you have it. Now, we covered why delegate, free up time, develop your staff, some of the ground rules. Once it's theirs, it's theirs. No take backsies. Be clear about what success looks like and use a decision making model like carry, crawl, walk, run. And I'm glad you joined me for this session. My name is Jerry Dugan. Yeah, my email address is jerrydugan@btrimpact.com. And what I want to now share with you is a couple of goodies that you can use for yourself. The first one is if you go to this website here, btrimpact.com/healthcare-staffing, it's a free calculator to help you determine what is the cost of voluntary turnover in your organization. So how is that hurting you? How is it helping you? Um, Employee engagement. What do you have to gain on the bottom line of your organization if you have higher levels of employee engagement? So how much does your organization save because you have less absenteeism, because you have more revenue being produced, more profitability? Those kinds of numbers are calculated from that free calculator. So go to btrimpact.com/healthcare-staffing. The last thing I want to share with you is that on April 1st and April 2nd in the DFW area, I am hosting a 2-day workshop intensive, and it is aimed at specifically applying the tent framework to help you boost the workplace culture on your team so that your employee engagement, accountability, and performance all go up. And as a result, you have happier customers, happier patients, higher levels of profitability. So we'll cover things like your own personal leadership credo. What are your goals, your vision, your values? And how do you state that in a 3-sentence statement? So we'll develop something like that. We'll have this conversation on delegation on a deeper level. We'll talk about the power of 10. We'll talk about handling toxic behavior, so confronting people. But the thing I really love about this 2-day event, besides the snacks and the free popcorn, oh man, popcorn, I love popcorn. That's not important. The thing I love the most about this 2-day event is that we're going to dedicate a good chunk of time doing a think tank session. So if you want to be in a room with 12 other professional leaders like yourself, and you want to dig deep on a pressing issue that you're facing with your team, or a goal you want to achieve with your team, and it involves improving accountability and engagement and performance, you'll want to be there, because what we'll do is we'll help you with some laser focused techniques to get to the bottom of what's happening, the root cause, and you'll come out with action steps, true action steps of what you will do in the next 90 days to boost employee engagement, accountability, retention, performance, all those things within 90 days. Sounds crazy, but when you have laser focus, you can do a lot of good. You can have a lot of impact with that. So go to btrimpact.com/workshop. And if you do this today on February 29th, 2024 by midnight Central Time and use TENTFEB24 as the promo code, you're going to save $1,000 off that price. It's $1,997 regular price, full price, $1,997. That is 2 days of this workshop intensive, but in good telemarketing fashion. That's not all. But wait, there's more, right? Uh, if you come to this thing, you also have access to uh, uh, the full course of the Engagement Accelerator, and this covers everything that falls under the sun of the tent framework. And it takes about 90 days to review, implement, and so on. Also, in the first 3 months after you attend this event, I am doing monthly webinars, Q&A sessions with my students, and you get to submit your questions based on the tent framework, and we'll address those in the webinar. So really cool, right? If you got questions, boom. So you get a course that takes you on a deeper dive to the content. You have 3 webinars you can attend as part of coming to this workshop. And here's the other thing. Part of your assignment is to assess the vibe of your team with the tools that we'll cover in the 2-day workshop. After you've done that assessment, I'll give you a one-on-one consultation so that you develop a plan of what's next. You got this information from your team, and this is what you want to do with it. And you're going to have a true 90-day action plan. That's also included in the $1,997. So that's 4 big bonuses right there. Access to an e-course, access to webinars where you can be in a community of other leaders, and access to a free consultation to help you create a 90-day plan off of the workshop and off of the homework from the workshop, all for $1,997. And again, if you sign up today with TENTFEB24, you get to save $1,000. And tomorrow, price is going up. And you'll have to stay tuned to see if there's another discount code, but prices will definitely go up tomorrow. And then by mid-March, it's going to go to full price. So you want to jump on this while it's still on the cheap and get your money's worth. In fact, get your money's worth plus the discount money's worth. So there you have it. I'm glad you joined me on this broadcast. I'll be back again with another one where we talk about the power of 10. And then we have a live session, a web forum. After that, I'll have, since it's going to be March Madness, I'll be talking with a former NBA assistant coach, as well as a former college basketball player who's now a leadership consultant as well. And it's going to be fun. Good stuff. We're going to be talking about stopping the madness. All right. I'm glad you joined me. I want to hear from you. How are you going to use delegation using the carry, crawl, walk, run model? How have you used delegation in the past to boost your career? Feel free to put that in the comments. And again, jump on this opportunity for the 2-day workshop in the DFW area. If you're like, DF what? Dallas, Fort Worth. The town specifically is Farmers Branch. If you go to this website down below, btrimpact.com/workshop, you'll see the ad underneath the top 2 little blocks, and it'll have information about April 1st and 2nd. All right. Take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.